Hi everybody, this is the official Supercross Live pre-show fueled by Monster Energy. Kevin Barnett, Jim Holley, round 12 from the Rogers Center in Toronto, Canada. Jim, a lot of talk last week about the track and its slickness. This week in Toronto, what can we expect?
Well, traditionally here in Toronto, you know, it's a little bit different. But I don't know coming into this year because they haven't had the winter that they've had in the past. Usually they bring in the soil, it's pretty wet. Sometimes in the years past, it's thawing out. So traditionally, it's pretty rocky here and it gets a lot of ruts.
All right, let's start with the Supercross Lights East Regional Class. It's been all about Justin Barcia. It seemed like expectations were so high that a third last week was almost a disappointment.
Well, you know, it was, but like we talked about, it could have been a lot worse for him. I think that, you know, he wants to get back on his winning ways, but, you know, you let a guy like Blake Wharton win, and that just lets the other guys know, Darren Durham and Blake Baggett and all these other guys that are vying for a win, that, hey, it can be done.
Yeah, you mentioned all those guys. There's a wealth of talent in that Supercross Lights East Regional class, and Roxon was the expected opposite to Barcia. We thought we'd get a duel. We haven't seen it out of Kenny Roxon just yet. He hasn't put it together, leading that main last week and then threw it away on his own. Is he going to put together a good race?
I think that this weekend here in Toronto will be a win for Ken Roxon. I'm going to go out there and say
there you have it.
Just because I think that, you know, he rides the ruts really well in loose soil like we're going to have here. Traditionally, like we talked about, it's ruddy here, it's rocky, it's a lot like an outdoor track in some of the turns. And I think Kenny Roxon, that world championship that he has in that MX2 last year, I think it's going to play into factor here tonight in Toronto.
All right, let's move on to the Supercross class. It's been all about the injuries. Of course, Reed and Dungey out, Kennard out. Now JS7, James Stewart not going to be here for this round. Have the injuries this season been more than you're used to? Is this out of the ordinary?
Well, you know, there's always injuries in Supercross, and you know, you don't really hear about it, the privateer guys that get injured, because they're not the big name guys.
Right.
So I think this year we're seeing a lot of the big name guys getting hurt, and I mean, there's a few other guys, you know, Tedesco, Hill,
Morris,
Hansen, Morris. I mean, the list just goes on.
Yeah.
And you know, for the man who's leading the points, Villapoto, he's got a healthy point lead now. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about James Stewart now. I mean, you know, we were talking about last week that he had to worry about James Stewart. Now he's got to worry about the other 19 guys on the gate. And you know, even though those top guys are gone, don't think that it's going to be a cakewalk for Villapoto, because everybody's going to start stepping up their game here and knowing, hey, I could possibly get a win. If something happens to Villapoto, I can win this thing.
Right, there's a Metcalf and Wyndham. There's a lot of great racing out there. You mentioned earlier we were talking about the points race, and from Kevin Wyndham on back, it's tight. There are going to be guys fighting for position.
Yeah, it's only separated by 1 point, you know, and we're talking about the man who finished up second, Justin Brayton, and behind him, Brett Metcalf, who finished up fourth last week. Those guys are nipping on the heels of Kevin Wyndham, and Kevin Wyndham's only 5 points out of Davey Millsaps, who sits in that fourth spot.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. From fourth on back, there's going to be some fantastic racing. Now, you made a prediction in the lights class. Give me your prediction for the Supercross class.
I don't even know if I can give a prediction, Kevin, to be honest with you. I mean, you think that you know one thing and you're figuring out something, and then something else completely happens different. But you know, I can tell you one thing: if Villapoto doesn't get a start, I think that we're going to have a new winner in here in Toronto.
All right, I'm going to go with Justin Brayton. Who are you going to go with out there? Let us know. Facebook.com/SupercrossLive, Twitter.com/SupercrossLive, and of course, live on Speed again tonight from Toronto. Hashtag SXOnSpeed to get in the conversation. I'm Kevin. He's Jim. Monster Energy, big thanks. And all day we'll have great new stuff from Toronto.